Hey, what is up, YouTube? What is up, family? What is up, Christianthology family? So we have Dr. Phil with a one-on-one interview with Donald Trump. Let's get straight to the video. If you guys enjoyed the video, hit the like button because when you hit the like, it boosts the algorithm gods. It allows my video, to get up there so people can see it. All right, let's get straight to the video. Okay, man. I'm sure y'all know how YouTube works by now. I don't need to tell y'all.
Why do you subject yourself to this? What do you say to yourself when the crowds aren't cheering? What is the hardest, darkest moment? There's an addiction to revenge. Nobody would fault you. You can say, it ends here. It ends with me.
Our country is in tremendous danger of World War III, and I don't think I've ever said this on air before.
Last week, 12 jurors deliberated for 2 days and rendered a verdict finding Donald Trump guilty on all 34 charges of falsifying business records, leading to an unprecedented felony conviction of not only a former president, but also the front-runner nominee for the Republican Party. I traveled to Mar-a-Lago to sit down one-on-one with President Trump for an unfiltered, no-holds-barred interview. And I promise you, no topic was off limits. But I don't endorse candidates, so I want to sit down with President Biden and Kennedy as well, because everybody needs to vote, and not just vote, but make informed votes.
It's an honor to be with you. Let me just say, it's great looking at that logo. I've seen that sucker a long time.
Yeah. You look well.
I feel good.
Do you?
I feel good. No pressure.
Yeah.
It's nice to lead a life of no pressure whatsoever.
Yeah.
Corruption, surrounded by corrupt judges and corrupt politicians. Other than that, there's no pressure.
Well, you and I talked the other night, and I work in trial sciences for a lot of my career, and so I have a particular interest in the dynamics of the trial setting.
It was interesting when you called the other day about doing an interview. A lot of people want to do interviews, and I don't just agree to them very easily. But I've always had great respect for you. I watch your show, some of the real good ones, and some of the less intellectual ones, and that's okay too. But it's always been you've always been very special, and I knew that you were, in some form, very much involved with trials, and I found it to be very interesting that you would take this up. It's a very important thing.
Well, I wanted to, and I know that there was some news coming out of Georgia today, there was some news coming out of Florida today, that they're stepping back from this. And
very good news.
I called for the other day, and I don't know if you saw it, but on Merritt Street Media, where I now do my show, I called for President Biden to stop all of this now. And of course, a lot of people said, oh, he can't stop it, it's a state case. Well, okay, that's an explanation for stupid people, but for people that understand how this works behind the scenes and all, I say the same thing. They need to stop this. They need to stop pursuing you. Since you started your campaign in 2015 to run for office, there have been so many attempts to get you off the board, even
10
before you
years.
started your campaign. Then once you were in office, 2 impeachment opportunities. They changed the rules to try to make it high crimes and misdemeanors if there were business conflicts, and in this case,
Never ends.
it seems to be never ending. And that is a distraction to you. And I really wonder how that affects you. What do you say to yourself about that? Because it seems to never be ending.
It's a never-ending thing. There's a term that I know you've heard many times. It's called Trump derangement syndrome, and nobody's ever seen anything like it.
Joy Reid.
In one way, we drive him totally crazy because we
Joy Reid hates Trump but has the same hairstyle as him. Come on. If I hate someone, I'm not having the same style, look, hair. Like, nah. I hate you for a reason. I'm a Christian. I can't hate nobody. But let's say if I hated someone, right? I wouldn't want to look like the person I'm hating. Unless that person is in your brain 24/7. Now you're thinking that, oh, I look like him. As a black woman, how do you look like Trump? And how do you have a blown wig when you know that that type of hair will never grow out your body?
doing the right thing. You wonder, why would somebody want to have open borders where people are coming in from jails, prisons, where they're coming in from mental institutions, and as you know better than anyone else, they're coming in, they're releasing the people all over the world, not just South America, from mental institutions and jails and prisons, and they're terrorists coming in by the thousands. They're pouring into our country. And who would allow this? You know, it's common sense, not a conservative thing. If they would devote that same skill and talent to making America great again, it would really be a wonderful thing. But in the meantime, we're beating them. You know, you mentioned I got impeached twice and I won twice very easily, very quickly. We had great support from the Republican Party. I have all these cases all my life. I didn't have any problem. And all of a sudden, within a matter of months, I end up with 4 cases. Now, of course, it's from the White House and the Department of Justice. They totally control the state case. In fact, I'm not allowed to even be talking about certain aspects of it because I have a gag order. Think of it. I'm the Republican nominee. I was the president, and I'm leading the current Democrat by a lot. And I have a gag order from a local judge that was appointed by the Democrat Party. A local judge. He's a local person, and he's appointed. And he put a gag order on me. Nobody's ever seen anything like it.
While you're campaigning.
While I'm campaigning, like you just mentioned a question that I'm not allowed to talk about.
Election year.
Right.
Can you imagine? I'm the Republican nominee, and I'm not allowed to talk because a local judge from New York, appointed by Democrats, said, I can't talk about it. It's so unfair. And then he gives a jury charge. Nobody's ever heard of a charge like this. He gave instructions to the jury. And by the way, the jury happened to be in a location that was almost no Republicans. You understand that?
Yeah, it's 87-13 in the last two elections, Republican. And I know you can't talk about it. I'm not under a gag order. I do know that the number 3 person in the Department of Justice took a pay cut and went down in stature to go to a state job and become one of the lead prosecutors in this case. But yet they say, hey, Dr. Phil, why are you saying that, that President Biden needs to stop all of this? It's a state case. That's exactly why I'm saying it. Don't be naive, people. Understand that there's a power play going on
It's
here.
controlled by the White House and the DOJ, 100%.
You know, Gerard Baker wrote in Wall Street Journal today, and I'm paraphrasing, but he said, what do we say to those people that are rejoicing over reducing law to the status of a weapon in the hands of the dominant political power? Because that's what's happening right now. It's become a weapon, and that's not what it's intended for. That's not what we need to be doing. I mean, let's let the people decide these, right?
That's right. That was a very good statement in the Wall Street Journal. I read that this morning. And it's so true. I mean, it's so accurate. They've weaponized to a level. They are trying to affect the election by demeaning, hurting in any form. And by the way, I think after the election, the hatred's great enough that they'll go, but with much less enthusiasm. This is about November 5th, which I think is going to be the most important day in the history of our country. If we don't turn this around, we're not going to have a country left anymore.
Well, we're a country of laws, right? I mean, and that's what's made us so orderly. That's what's allowed us to progress forward. And there's something that are called hornbook laws or black letter law that is just, these things have just been around so long. And these were violated in your case, one right after the other. For example, you don't let someone that has been charged in the same case as someone else, and they made a plea deal and said, okay, I'm guilty of doing this, because they were intimidated into doing it. The lawyer in your case, we don't even need to speak his name, he bartered around out from under 65 years, looking at 65 years of imprisonment down to 3 years and 2 years on this case and a tax case. So went from 65 years down to 5 years in exchange for giving them testimony against you. That's not supposed to come in, but it did. Pecker making a deal, a non-prosecution agreement. That's not supposed to come in, but it did. That got into the jury box. They got to hear all of that. And so they say, well, you know, if we're not down here for the reasons they're saying, then we need an alternative explanation, which they're not allowed to get, because your expert witness that was going to come in and say, as a former chairman of the Election Commission, was going to say this was looked at, there's no issues here. They didn't allow that person to talk, to testify. And I'm looking at this saying, how is the jury supposed to solve this problem if they don't have all the pieces to the puzzle?
They wouldn't listen to him. They wouldn't talk to him. They didn't want to hear his testimony. They knew what he was going to say. He was going to say it was 100%. And very importantly, when they tell somebody, you're going to jail for 15 years, unless you say bad things about this guy named Trump. Okay? Now, in all fairness, we know a lot of great people, but you don't know too many that would say, I'm not going to do what they want.
Yeah.
He goes up to somebody and they say, Dr. Phil, you're going to jail for 15 years unless you say bad things about Trump. And if you say the bad things, you're not going to jail at all. In fact, we're going to make you a hero. Or you're going to go for 3 months, or you're going to go for a short period of time. How many people are there that say, you know, I'm not going to do that? There have been people.
Not many.
That's right.
And those are, in my opinion, these are great people. What they've done to people that work for me is incredible. Yeah. Incredible. The threats, the taking of a gentleman who's been with me for years and telling me he's going to jail for 15 years unless they say, and he went back to jail a second time. I guess they didn't want him to testify. I don't know what happened exactly, but the threats that they made to this man, they've destroyed his life. These are fascists. You know, these are really bad people, Phil. But who's going to do it? You're going to jail for 15 years, or you're going to go for 30 days or 40 days.
You just
say
say
for no time,
yeah.
but you have to say bad things about Trump.
Right.
And that's intimidation. And some of these people, you look at their age, you look at their health, and
It's
some
like,
of it
I
could
can't
be a
be in
death
jail.
sentence.
Right.
And so they make a deal, and that's what I talk about. That's what I mean when I say prosecutorial abuse. Did anyone ever approach you and try to get you to make a deal, drop out of the race, make a deal here, we'll leave you alone?
No, they didn't, but I believe they would. If I would have offered that up, I think they know me well enough. I really do. But if I didn't run, as an example, I would have never had any of these lawsuits. How about I get prosecuted on a person that I have no idea who she is? I have no idea who she is. I have to pay $91 million. And that judge was just as bad, just as corrupt, a corrupt judge. I have to pay $91 million to a woman. I have no idea who she is. She wrote a book and she made a statement in the book. And you know that case. That case is a disaster. And then but I have no idea who she is. And they said I did things. These people are corrupt and in some cases incompetent. But it's such an honor to have somebody like you see it and see it so clearly. And I knew that, I mean, I remember that years ago you were helping Oprah out, and she was sued and it was having a big impact on her.
Mad cow
And I
case.
thought it was great. And you know, Oprah used to really like me. She was here many times.
Yeah.
She loved my key lime pie. We have key lime pie, and she loved a lot of things about Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah.
And Roger King, as you know,
Yeah, we were here for the funeral for
correct,
Roger King.
long time ago. It's the only funeral we've ever had at Mar-a-Lago. I said, maybe we can do a new business here. We'll do operate as a funeral parlor. But it was one of the most beautiful funerals in the ballroom behind us. It was, and he was a great guy. And Oprah's terrific. But once I announced I was running, and I said, we have to have strong borders, we have to have this, we have to have that, we've sort of lost contact, as the expression goes. But I remember when you were very much involved in helping Oprah. And that's really the first thing I thought when you called about this horrible witch hunt that, in all fairness, they've had going against me for years.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's been time and time again. And you know, that was another black letter law that you just don't do. The judge tells you, okay, you can testify, but I'm going to allow them to ask you about this person that you now owe $91 million. I'm going to allow them to ask you about this other case. I'm going to allow them to ask you about 10 contempt citations that I've given you. I'm going to allow them to ask about all that stuff. What does any of that have to do with the matters at hand? And the answer is zero. That gets into the jury box if you take the witness stand. Again, that is black letter law. You can't let in unrelated things that have more prejudicial impact than probative nature.
Man, imagine owing someone $91 million that you don't know, or doesn't have a reasonable cause for asking you for $91 million. That's insane to me. That's very insane.
That just
Very
doesn't
insane.
happen, but it happened 1, 2, 3 things right in a row,
That's right.
and that gets into the jury
If you
box.
testify, they'll be able to ask you about all these different things. And by the way, if you say one thing if you say it was a beautiful day, as I remember it, and it was raining out, we're going to indict you for perjury.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, I have a lot of lawyers that are friends and this and that. I had probably 25 guys over the course of a couple of months say, whatever you do, don't testify, because you'll say something that's a little bit off, and you will be indicted for lying, for perjury. These are evil people. These are sick, evil people.
Oh, I
And,
would have thrown
just-
myself in front of your car to keep you from
No,
testifying.
I wanted to so badly. And by the way, I would have loved to have testified about those things because it was so corrupt and so horrible. But he wouldn't have allowed me to answer the questions properly. No. And so I would have loved to have testified. I wanted to. I'm telling you, they had to hold me back. But every lawyer that came, they'd always start to say, by the way, I'm afraid of yours, don't testify. And they saw what he was doing. They can ask you about like anything. They can do nothing to do with this case. All of these outside things. And it was really an unfair trial. There's a very brilliant judge in Florida that's holding the government, it looks like, I mean, she's looking into what happened, because, you know, they raided Mar-a-Lago. Right. And they took stuff out by the satchel. I mean, they took bags and bags of stuff. And I said, what are they taking? Are they saying what they're taking? Because they can add things. They can add the nuclear codes in there. They say, hey, he had the nuclear codes. And this was all stuff that under the Presidential Records Act I'm allowed to do. By the way, Biden was totally exonerated. Now, I'm not sure I want that kind of an exoneration. They basically said he's incompetent to stand trial, but he could be president. Think of that. He's not sharp enough, got no memory.
Bruh, you guys not hear what he's saying? They're saying that the guy is mentally unaware, so we can't send him to prison. But he could be the president of the United States of America. If that doesn't scare you, and to know how corrupt these Democrats are, I don't know what else to say. The man literally committed crimes, but he's too mentally shot that they don't even want to prosecute him. But they want him to be president. Oh man, please, can you people open your eyes? Please, I'm looking right at the camera. The camera's right here. I'm looking straight at the camera. You people need to open your eyes, okay? Don't let Satan back into the White House, okay? Please. Please, I'm pleading. Please.
He got no this, got no that. He's incompetent. Basically, they're saying he can't stand trial due to incompetence, but he can run for president. What's going on?
Yeah.
What are we missing here?
Yeah, it makes everybody uncomfortable about that state of affairs. And what I was concerned about with everything that happened in this New York trial is one of the big myths is that the burden of proof lies with the prosecution. Mm-hmm. That is the law. But I can tell you, after years and years and years of trial, the truth is that the jury sits there and says, I'm looking at all this, and if we're not down here for the reason they say we're down here, Somebody needs to give me an alternative explanation of why we are down here. So if we're not down here because of what the prosecutors are telling us, then what's the alternative story? What's the alternative explanation? And when you get muzzled in the way that this judge muzzled this case, they're sitting there saying, what's the rest of the story? You're not allowed to testify because you're in jeopardy if you do. They let all of this other stuff in that should never get into the jury box. And so, the scales get tipped. And it gets very, very difficult to get even one juror because there's not an alternative story that if you could tell without being in peril, if you can tell without being intimidated, it would be a very different situation. The burden legally is on the prosecution. But logically,
You're
with the
guilty
jury,
until proven innocent.
that's
basically
exactly
what
the truth.
I can tell you that's the truth with me.
That's how it
what
plays
happened.
out. And I did a focus group about this when I did a show on this on Merritt Street. And I had 250 people in, did a focus group, and I said, and overwhelmingly the people were in your favor. But I found those that had questions, and I said, what is your question? They said, where there's smoke, there's fire.
Yeah.
I didn't hear
I
the other
understand.
part of it.
I'm sitting here, and you've asked me indirectly a couple of questions. They're so simple to answer. I'd love to. And yet, if I do, this guy's he's willing to throw you in jail. Okay, this is an appointed judge acting. He's an acting judge, appointed, and he's willing to throw you. And he's so conflicted. It's so sad. But you do things for your country, and I view it. I think if my country weren't involved, because people say the two questions. I get these questions from very tough guys like you. The biggest guys on Wall Street, people that you read about, but they're tough men and women. But I have the question asked often is number one question I get, how do you stand it? How do you do it? How do you get up in the morning and put your clothing on and go to work? I do get that because people don't envy it. And the other one I get is, will they do it again? Meaning, will they cheat? Will they do it again? Will it happen again?
Well, I have a different question than that how question. My question is why. I understand how. I know you got a thick skin. You're not one of those people that's afflicted with the need to be loved by strangers. I get that.
I think that's true.
My question is not how do you do it. My question is why do you do it? Why do you, let's face it, I mean, you're a billionaire, you got a great family, you're a very dedicated father. People may not see this in you a lot because you keep that kind of private, but my question to you is why do you subject yourself to this? If you want to see more of our conversation, we have an app, Merit Plus. It's free. Download.
All right, so this is not the full interview. Let's see if I can find the full interview though.
It's an honor to be with you. Really like me. She was here many times. Will they do it again? Will it happen?
Under you, average 1.7 million border crossings.
Better? Because I showed something, but maybe if I had too much time on my hands, it would have gone too far, and the administration wouldn't have been as successful as it was. When you look at
Okay, so Trump has a full interview on his YouTube channel. So Donald Trump, right here, J Trump, right? He has a YouTube channel with 2.9 million subscribers.
built the military, largest
The
tax
quality
cuts
on here
ever.
is
Largest
terrible
tax
though,
cuts bigger
but
than the Reagan tax
it is
cuts.
what it is.
Largest regulation cuts ever.
I'm staying with my why question because look at this. Everybody calls it inflation, but affordability. When we talk about gasoline under your administration, average $2.57 a gallon.
It's $1
Under Biden,
difference, more.
$3.61, 40% more. Under your administration, homes average $320,000. Under the Biden administration, 31% more, $420,000. Under your administration, interest rates 3.8 average. Under the Biden administration, 39% more at 5.3%. Okay, now let's look at the border. Under you, average 1.7 million border crossings. Their official number is 6.4. That's from Homeland Security. It's actually about
That's a lie.
13 million. Because I know I've been to the border. I've talked to the border guards down there, Brandon Judd. I've talked to Jason Jones. I've talked to the people that actually know the numbers. They say it's between 10 and 13 million. So my point is, when you look at the actual numbers, plus the things you just talked about, lower taxes, higher tax revenue, you look at that and you would say, my God, he should be running unopposed. I mean, why?
And these numbers, I appreciate it, and these numbers are really, I don't know how many.
Very conservative.
To me, I wouldn't mind Trump running for 8 more years, even 12 if he can. I think he's like, how old is Trump? How old is Trump? Hey Siri, how old is Donald Trump?
Mm-hmm. Donald Trump is 77.
Oh, he's 77. Oh, he could run like 13 more years if he really wanted to. I said 13, maybe 8. 8, yeah, 8 is reasonable. I wouldn't mind if he could run 8 more years. I wouldn't mind it, bro. Do you guys see what Dr. Phil just put on the screen? A house was $320,000 under his admin. Come on, man. Come on. Like I'm acting like I didn't go to school. Administration, 320K, and Biden's administration about 400 plus. That's probably like I think it was 420 or 400. I'm not sure, but it's almost $80,000 to $100,000 more that a regular average American could have saved. 100,000. You know what you could do with 100,000 as a regular person? As a regular person, 100,000 you save it. Pay your car off. Invest in your business if you're starting one. Just invest in yourself. $100,000 is a lot of money. And gas was $2.57 under him. And Joe Biden gas is $3.60 something. I'm probably butchering the numbers, but it's roughly on there. And interest rate was 3.8%, and under Biden is 5.3 or 5.8, something like that.
As an example, I had gasoline down to $1.87, not $2.57. It's now almost at $4. It's going to be at $5 very shortly. It's going way up.
I took very conservative numbers so people couldn't argue.
Well, interest rates, I was at 2.6%, they have 3.8, and now they're at 9%, 10%, you can't get money. So, we did a great job.
Okay, so here's the question. Most people look at this from the standpoint of, they ask themselves a question, is my life better under this administration, or is it better under this administration? My quality of life, my ability to pay for my children's lunches, tennis shoes, getting them
groceries, gas,
different things that go to
car,
life.
house,
and when we look at
bills,
that, it's not even a close call.
Right.
So why are people so energized against President Donald J. Trump?
Well, I think it's, to a certain extent, it's habit, not necessarily against me. I think Democrats vote out of habit. I'll give you an example. I was the best president for Israel ever. Golan Heights, all of the things I did for Israel, and yet I get less than 50% of the votes. It's shocking to me. And Biden's a disaster, and Obama was.
And Ben Shapiro actually doesn't like Donald Trump. He says it was a better candidate. You would rather vote for that person, but since he's Republican, he's the only candidate running. He's gonna vote for him. But he's saying that he's the best president for Israel. If this Jewish guy, what is his name? Ben Shapiro cares so much about Israel. Why don't you like Donald Trump if he's doing the most that he can as a president for Israel, your country? Because since you like to act like you're not American, everything's all about Israel. Okay, we get it. I'm from a different world. I'm from a different country too. Like, stop it, okay? Stop it. I'm not putting America. I'm not putting the country I'm from over America. Because I live in America. Why would I do that? That's like a traitor to me.
Was a disaster for Israel with the Iran nuclear deal that he approved, all that, which was basically a path toward nuclear weapons. And I say, why? And I say it's habit. They're used to voting for Democrats. Black people are used to voting for Democrats, but they're coming off it. They're smart. They're seeing what's happened.
I've never voted. I'm voting this year though, but so I'm actually amazing. I've never voted Democrat in my life. I've never voted Democrat in my life. Some of you, I can never say that. I've never voted Democrat. And I might never will. God bless America, baby.
Seeing criminal justice reform. They're seeing the black colleges and universities. I got it funded. They're seeing all of the things that I've done. Nobody could do what I did. I say that, and people sometimes smile, but it's actually true. I'm the best president for black people since Abraham Lincoln. And black people are seeing that, and we have numbers now that as a Republican, I don't think anybody's ever had. I hope they come out and vote for me.
I was just in Jerusalem and interviewed Prime Minister Netanyahu.
Yeah.
He said that the Abraham Accords, which you achieved, he said he didn't have the words to describe what it presented for Israel in terms of security, in terms of the ability to bring about peace and stability to that region.
That's very nice, by the way, that you say that. And by the way, great for the Arab community also. It was great for both.
Yeah,
and they're working so well. The only problem is we had 4 countries signed, real leaders. I would have had everybody signed up. I would have had Iran signed up. People laugh when I say that. Iran was broke. I said, anybody buys from Iran, you can't do business with the U.S. Iran was broke. They were down to almost no money. They had no money to fund Hamas or Hezbollah. They had no money. They were broke. They would have made a deal within a week after the election. That result was very dangerous for our country. But we did great things, and I think that's what people see. People want to go back to where we were.
You had high-level appointee positions that you didn't fill, and thousands more mid-level positions that you didn't fill, and generated over $4 trillion in tax revenue for the first time ever.
Right.
With tax cuts, lower tax rates, higher tax
It
revenues.
brought business into the country.
So why are people so
Oh,
energized against
man.
you? Are you getting out-messaged?
I think, no, I really believe it's 100 years. As an example, with African Americans, for 100 years, the Democrats have run the cities. 100 years. I used to say 50. They said, you're wrong. I said, you have to be kidding. It's 100 years. It's a habit. They get used to it. But they're learning that habit's being broken in a lot of different ways. I also think you have a fake news that doesn't report it the way they should be reporting it. Look, the news has been proven to be totally fake. And it's 95% on the other side. That's the thing I don't understand. Why do people want open borders where millions of people have come into our country, and you see what's happening to the crime rate? You know, a stat came out the other day that's scary. In Venezuela, Caracas, different cities, they've moved many of these criminals out into the United States and now happily in a location near you, right near your house.
Venezuela, the Congo, they're emptying the prisons.
The Congo, we have many, many people coming out of the prisons of the Congo. But the prison populations are way down all over the world. Nobody wants to talk about it. Prison population and mental institutions, something you deal with a lot.
Psychiatric facilities, you too. Please, don't ban me.
Anybody, as far as I'm concerned. You know the population of mental institutions is way down because they've moved a lot of the most seriously ill people into our country. And Venezuela just announced that they're 72% down in crime from 2 years ago. Think of that. Because they moved their, I mean, you don't have to be a genius to realize they moved their prisoners out, but they moved their gangs. All the gang members are now in the United States, happily living in the United States. The United States of America has become a dumping ground because of a very mentally deficient president. And it's not him. I don't believe it's him. I do think he knows what's going on. I think he's sort of an evil guy. But he's not at the top of his game, and he never was very good at it. If you look at his foreign policy for years and years and years, you look at how bad he was on the crime bill in the 1990s, how he's been bad at everything, and he got lucky. Look, he ran 3 or 4 times when he would be, let's say, in normal shape, in good shape. He failed. He got it when shouldn't be here. He shouldn't be here. And he's dealing with President Xi, who I know very well, and he's dealing with Putin, who I know very well, and he's dealing with all of these leaders of these countries they don't like the United States, they don't like what it represents. And they are at the top of their game. They are vicious. They love their country, or they want success. You define it any way you want. We've become a failing nation. We're a nation that's in tremendous trouble. We have months to go. We have somebody negotiating for us and dealing for us who is not up to par. He's not, and I'm not even saying now. I think 25 years ago he wasn't up to par, but he's dealing with President Xi of China. He's dealing with President Putin of Russia. He's dealing with Kim Jong-un of North Korea. He's dealing with very tough people that really are at the top of their game. I know them all. I know many more than that. And our country's in tremendous danger of World War III. Our country's, you look at what's going on with Ukraine now. You see what's happening, where they're talking about nuclear. They're bringing out the N-word, as I say. And they're talking about nuclear weapons, and they're talking about things that would never...
Man, Trump funny, man.
In the White House, nobody ever uttered the word nuclear. Nuclear is a very bad word because of the power of weaponry. And we have a man that should not be dealing, and we're going to end up in a nuclear war. We're going to end up in World War III with this guy. And if the 5 months is a long time. We have 5 months to go before the election. Now it's even a little bit less. It's getting to be very close. Remember, you have early voting on September 22nd. Pennsylvania goes September 22nd. Yeah. So it's really less, quite a bit less. But I really believe it's a very dangerous time because I think they're making moves. They love him as our president. They don't respect him. They think he's weak and incompetent. Now, one thing I'll say, he's surrounded by a lot of fascists.
What happened at the D-Day parade or ceremony or something like that? They said he pooped his pants, bro. The old man pooped his pants. How old is Biden? Trump is 2077, so... Hey, Siri. How old is Joe Biden?
Joe Biden is 81 years old.
81 years old. Y'all see it? 81 years old. Right there. Joe Biden is 81 years old. Trump is 77 years old. It's like a 4-year difference. 4-year difference. 4-year difference. Look at the difference here. One is 77, one is 81. Just 4 years. 4 years, you shouldn't be not being able to speak coherently, fluently, and articulately. If that's a word. You guys agree with me? 4 years, you shouldn't be like stuttering and like slurring and stuff like that. Like, come on, you pooping yourself. I mean, 80 is old, but like, come on, bro. I don't know if Trump was pooping himself. Maybe Trump got a diaper on. Who knows? Maybe he has a diaper. I don't know. Maybe Joe Biden needs a diaper too.
And communists, but a lot of fascists, and they're young and they're smart, and that's who's running our country.
Well, let me ask you something then. Let's assume that you inherit a situation where American bombs are being used inside of Russia. Let's assume that you inherit that. We could wind up with World War III if we're not there already and it just hasn't been labeled yet.
We've never been so close to World War III as we are right now.
There could be 100,000 or more potential terrorists on American soil right now today, given what's happened at the southern border.
Correct.
And we do have Venezuela, Congo, others that are emptying their prisons of their most dangerous criminals with one caveat: we'll let you out, but you go to the United States.
I believe every country is doing it.
Yeah. And
by the way, if you were the head of a country,
well,
you'd be the first one to do it. I know you. You'd say, "What? Let's get rid of these." You know the money they save and the danger they save.
And look at this map. That I did a show about this. The red is where Chinese government has funded buying major farmland.
Yeah.
And then superimposed on that are some of our most strategic military bases. Yeah. And you can see there's Dugway Proving Ground. That's military equipment, biological, chemical weapons. They're surrounding it. Utah Test Training Range, the largest supersonic authorized restricted airspace in the United States. Whiteman Air Force Base, B-2 Spirit Stealth Bomber Base, missile drone operations, MQ-9 Reaper, Global Strike Command 3, Air Force, entire Bomber Force, nuclear command control and communications. Fort Liberty, Airborne Special
These two people are going to still vote for them. Insane.
Them to come in and buy up agricultural land, wind farms, no wind, no blades on some of the towers, but they're surrounding our military bases. Right. We've allowed that to take place. You may come in and inherit all of this, and it may get worse over the next 5 months.
It will.
What are you going to do about that?
Well, first of all, you mentioned, I think, Fort Liberty. Used to be Fort Bragg. We won world wars from Fort Bragg.
Yes.
And they changed the name. And I don't even want to say that they spent $37 million in doing it, because that's not the most important thing, but that's a lot of money. You know,
it's pretty disgusting.
Now, I will say this. We want to let people come in and invest in our country at the same time.
Of course.
We want them to come and invest. We don't want to make it so impossible. We have to be careful. And this is a lot of land. What disturbs me as much, because we don't want to, say we're not going to let anyone come in and invest. That would be a bad thing. You know, when I was
But they don't need to buy around our...
No, there seems to be a lot of activity around those nuclear sites. But the thing with...
There's a lot of activity around the nuclear sites, man. What do you think they're doing? So Chinese people from Asia, the biggest freaking continent in the world, wants farmland in America near nuclear bases, airports, Air Force bases. That's where they want to buy farmland when they have the huge Asia. And they can even go get land from India, Iran. And they want to choose that. Okay. Oh man. Some of you demons don't have discernment. You have to ask God for discernment. If you don't ask God for discernment or ask God for wisdom, you're not going to get wisdom. Ask and the door shall be opened.
When you mentioned Fort Liberty, I remember that battle. As soon as I got out, they changed it. But they changed many names, almost all of them. They changed the names of these forts where we won 2 world wars and plenty of other things. And there's a great anger about that.
Well, as you know, they call it presentism. What they do is they take today's cultural standards and apply it to people's conduct 100 years ago, as though 100 years ago they were supposed to predict what the standards were going to be 100 years in the future and behave the way things were going to be 100 years in the future. You can't do that. It's like you drive through a neighborhood when the speed limit is 20, then they come and change it to 10 and say, I'm going to give you a retroactive ticket. And that's what they're doing. They're holding these people to the standards of today's mores and folkways based on how they behaved back and in that time. It's called presentism. And so they say, oh no, we've got to take these statues down. We've got to change these names because they were behaving in ways that we wouldn't accept today. Well, but it was accepted back then. I'm not saying it's our brightest hour. I'm not saying it's our most shining time. But these people also did great things along with things that we may not be proud of today, but that's who they were at the time.
It is never, if you know these people, because it's a group of people and they don't represent the big majority. Okay, they don't represent,
No.
but it's never good enough. No matter what you do.
No, I
Phil,
call it
it's
tyranny
never-
of the fringe.
Yeah, it's never good enough. You could do all the name changes. All of a sudden, they'll find that's a problem. So, in
If
different
you
parts of the
inherit
country,
this, if you inherit bombs in Russia and you have to deal with Putin, if you inherit terrorists on our soil that could attack our energy grid, how do you deal with that?
I will deal with it, and I'll get the war in Ukraine settled and done by the time I get to office. As president-elect, I will get it done. As president-elect, you have great power. I was able to do great deals from the time I got elected in 2016. I was able to do great deals from the time I got elected to the time I got to office in that little, because you have great power there. You need the power of the presidency to do it. I'm going to get the war in Ukraine if it's not done by that time. Now, it looks like it's getting worse. They're taking weapons now where they can shoot deep into Russia. Where is this going? Here's the problem. With Ukraine, which is right next to, we have an ocean in between. They're in for a tiny fraction of what we're in for. And I know them very well because I did it with NATO. I said, you people are delinquent. We're paying almost the entire cost of NATO. So they, excuse the word, they screw us on trade. And then on top of that, we're supposed to defend them. And I said, it doesn't work that way. But I didn't want to do that in my first. I let them know my first. When I came back, I didn't want to do it. I was in office for like 2 weeks. Then I'm saying, but I said, you're not paying your way. And I went back the second time and I said, you have to pay. Hundreds of billions of dollars was paid. They asked me one question, will you defend us against Russia if we haven't paid? I said, absolutely not. As soon as I said that, and I took a lot of heat from the fake news. The fake news went crazy when I said that because I said I won't defend them. Now you have the same thing. They paid hundreds of billions of dollars quickly. And that's what got all the money to do what they're doing now. But remember this. So we're probably in for $250 billion. They just got $62 billion. And now I heard today that they need more money. It's going to never end. Now, you have some people that say it's not a war that should have ever been started. It would have never started if I was president. Putin would have never done it. First of all, energy went up so much that he makes money on it. When you get up to $100 a barrel, I had it at $40 a barrel, Phil. It's so different. But it would have never happened. But now it has happened. Sometimes I hate to say almost that it would never have happened. And Israel would have never happened. The attack on October 7th would have never happened because Iran was broke. And Iran wasn't funding Hamas. And they weren't funding any of the terrorists, Hezbollah, all of them. There's like 28 of them. They had no money. They were broke. I said to China, if you buy oil from Iran, you can't do business in the United States. They didn't want to take any chance on that. Everybody stopped. And we had no terrorist attacks. And I never wanted to talk about it when I was president because I didn't want to jinx it. I wanted to get up and say, we have had no terrorist. Think of it. During my 4 years, we had no terrorist attacks. This nation is in such danger right now with the people that you're just talking about coming in. And it was interesting because I saw 29,000 Chinese people, and they showed it on camera. They look very strong. They all have their propane stoves. They all have cell phones. They look like military people.
A lot of military-age men have
Yeah,
come
they're
in.
mostly men, and they're mostly of a perfect age for military. And it's almost like, what are they doing? Building a military organization within our country with our help? We have people running our country who are grossly incompetent, headed up by a president who should never be there.
How do you unravel that?
Well, you have to do it with people, and we'll do it. Look, I have the same thoughts as you do. A lot of common sense to this stuff. It's not, we talk about
It's
it
not very
before.
common, is
Conservative,
it?
liberal, I don't care. It's common sense. We need borders. We need low taxes. We need good education. We need a strong military. I rebuilt the entire military. The entire military was rebuilt. I built a wall that was so great. And I got Mexico to give us 28,000 soldiers while I was building the wall to keep people out. We didn't have what you have today. We had the lowest day the week that I left office, and it was a sad day for this country. The week that I left office, that's when we had our lowest illegal flow of immigrants coming into our country. And all Biden had to do was leave it in place. I had a thing called Remain in Mexico. They had a Remain in Mexico. How good is that? They had
Remain in Mexico is crazy.
It was so stupidly run. And all Biden had to do when he goes to the beach, he's always in the beach, right? He thinks he looks good in the bathing suit. Some advisor said, go to the beach, you look great, Joe. And he can't even lift a chair, which weighs about 6 ounces. Those chairs that you can lift. They're meant for children and old people to lift. So Joe...
Yo, Dr. Phil doesn't want to laugh because he's about to get an interview with Biden soon, so you don't want to, you don't want to jeopardize that. But come on, that was funny. At 6 ounces, come on. At 6 ounces, like a chicken breast is like 4 ounces. Chicken breast, you can lift that up.
He's in the sand and he's in the beach, and he's totally decimating everything that we built. We built the strongest border in the history of our country, and we're going to do it again. Just one little thing. In 2016, I got elected maybe because of the border. But that border was a fraction. That was nothing compared to what the border is today. And I fixed it. And in 2020 when I ran, I couldn't even talk about it. Nobody wanted to hear about the border because I fixed it. I'll fix it again. But the border today is many, many times worse than it was in 2016.
Well, I've been to the border, and they just straight up say we're using tax dollars to send some of these children that are coming across the border into known prostitution rings, into sweatshops, because we don't have the ability to check. They're just sending them
Well,
off.
you know, we have 88,000 missing children. Now, can you imagine if that were Trump that had 88,000 missing children? 88,000, that's a Holocaust. That's as bad as I mean, think of it. These are young, very young children, and also women. They take women, and they trade women.
Ah, man. Oh, God. And the trade women, bro. These people are really sick. Thinking about it, it's really sick. So these people are allowing American citizens to be abducted, man. 88,000 people. Wow. And most of them are women because they want to use them for sex slaves. Let's be honest there. Prostitution, OnlyFans, all that stuff. And some of them, they use the little kids. I don't want to say this too loud because, you know, YouTube is kind of sensitive about this situation. But sometimes, or most of the times, the women that are in prostitution start at a tender age, 10 and up. And they'll have them in that prostitution ring for 10, 15 years. Sometimes for the rest of their lives. Or sometimes they might, they might unalive themselves because they don't want to deal with it no more. And I'm really praying to God that some of these women are saved. All of them are saved if that's possible, or if they can't be saved, at least, if they end their life, they could go up to God and they'll have some peace, have some rest, because life is evil. Because Satan runs the world, okay? God is the boss, but according to his will, that's how he want to run it. He wants Satan to run the earth. It is what it is. I don't have no issue with that. But things are happening, man. Things are happening. And you want to open your eyes because it could be your little girl, your little child, your sister, your niece, your cousin that could be adopted by these crazy people and put into. Did you watch Freedom? I think it's Freedom. I'm not messing up the name. I think I'm butchering the name, but it's a Freedom. It's all about these types of situations. Freedom movie. Yeah, Freedom. It's called Freedom. Sound of Freedom. Yes, Sound of Freedom. Great movie. It's a 10 out of 10 movie because it really exposes the dark secrets that people are, living, or people are doing to other people. This thing came out. Yeah, come on. It's almost a year. Wow. Your time flies by. Because I remember going to the theater to go watch this. They were giving out free tickets. Just go watch it. I didn't know what the movie was about, but I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go watch it. It's a free ticket. I went to watch it. Beautiful movie. It's about a little girl, based in America. She gets adopted by these people in like South America, something like that. I'm not sure. And then and the man goes to go rescue them. Oh, spoilers alert! So I'm sure everybody has watched it, so I'm not spoiling nothing. But yes, they adopt these little children and take them off there, man. But at the end of the day, I wouldn't want nobody who doesn't care about children being in power. Guys, please, why would you want someone that doesn't care about 88,000 children being abducted in our own country? Why would you want that person in power? At least bring the number down. 40,000. At least do something about it. But they don't do nothing about it. All they want to do is use the justice system to attack Trump. That's all they want to do. That's all they want to do. Are these people don't love America. They don't love America. Please, from the bottom of my heart, you guys can see my raw emotions. I'm talking low. I'm trying to get the point across, and I'm speaking slower. We have to do something about this. If you don't like Trump, at least like him for his points, what he wants to do for the country. Like him for that. Don't care about the person, because we all say foolish things. We are all sinners, guys. You're not above Trump. Trump is also a sinner. We are a sinner. He's just a rich sinner. That's it. And he has more powers to do whatever he wants. Okay? Please, please, please. If you guys can, no, vote. Use your head to vote, please. Please, man. Please. The kids matter. We matter. Americans matter. All right, let's get back to the video.
And I had it brought down to the lowest level because I had a border that was actually strong.
And you're going to take it back to that.
Oh, we're going to bring it back, and I think then some. You know, one thing, and you know this better than anybody, that you got to know people. It's about people. If you put a great person at the head of a big agency, lots of good things happen. In my business, if I have a good super in real estate, superintendent running one of my buildings, and if I move them to another building, sometimes you move them to another building but then that building, you need good people. And we had a lot of great people. I had some that I was very disappointed in. I was some that I was very, very disappointed in. But the one thing is that I was in Washington 17 times in my entire life. I never stayed over. That was reported by the news. I was very rarely there. I wasn't a Washington. I was a New York person. I was a builder in New York, a real estate guy. I had a wonderful company. Everything was going good. It would have been so easy to just to keep doing that. It was probably one of the most successful days of my life was the day before I announced I was running for president. Once you do this, the whole world changes.
Yeah.
I even lost Oprah. Okay, Oprah liked me so much, and you know I haven't spoken to her I think since. But she's a good person. Please give her my regards. But you know, you do things, and my attitude is you have to do what's right. If I didn't think that I won the election by a lot, I would have never run. And I don't think I've ever said this on air before. Maybe I have, but losing the election wouldn't have been that, you know, somebody wins, somebody loses. You go on with your life. But when you lose an election that you know you won by millions of votes, if I didn't think I won the election, I would have never done it a second, because I would have lost. In other words, I would have lost. I ran because I won the election, and I know that that's what the people want. They want what you and I are talking about right now. They want strong borders, and they want good education. They want all these things that we talked about. And we're going to get it to them, and we're going to get it fast. Probably the hardest problem, the biggest problem is nuclear and the weaponry, and we have to keep out of wars and all that. But the hardest problem for our country is the millions and millions of people that have been brought into this country, that have been dropped here. Many of them should not be here. They're really, really bad people from the jails, from the places. And you know what's going to happen? You'll take 10 out, and you'll have one where it's a woman with a couple of kids, and you're going to have the news say, oh, look at this, how horrible, how hard. It's a very hard thing to do, but we have to have the largest deportation effort in the history of our country. Dwight Eisenhower had it very early on because he was one that wanted strong borders.
But you're not against immigration.
No, I'm totally for it. But
we need it.
I think we
Legally.
need it desperately. But I don't want their prisoners, and I don't want their people from mental institutions, and I want
psychiatric facilities.
I want to let people come in. We need it. We do need it. We need people. But we need good people. We need people that aren't going to blow up our shopping centers.
We need good Africans.
Let me ask you two
Hardworking
areas I want
Africans.
to talk to you about that's going to be different, because I'm different, so let me be different. You have a personality-driven platform, just like I do. Mine's a fraction of yours. You've taken every shot you can imagine. You've been criticized, attacked, called every name in the book. They've turned the judicial system against you, the intelligence community. 51 intelligence officers swear that this is a Russian plant, this laptop over here, right before the election. The media has turned against you, print, TV, radio, internet, in the streets. Not campaigning Donald Trump, just real Donald Trump. How do you deal with that stress in your most private moments?
So, two things. Number one, I don't like thinking about it. Out of sight, out of mind. I don't know if that makes sense to you. I don't want to think about it. Number two, I have tremendous support. I have the people's support. I think if I didn't, I wouldn't be able to handle it so easily. When a judge who has conflicts like nobody's ever had wants to put me in jail, when he puts a gag order and says, if you talk about these things, we're going to put you in jail. And I'm the Republican candidate. I was president. I'm leading the Democrat by a lot. He wants to put me in jail. I like not to think about it. It's like they say, oh, don't eat that food, don't eat this food, don't do this, don't do that. They don't really know. It might be good for you. It might not be bad. It might be good. They say it causes cancer. I say, don't talk to me about it. I don't want to hear the word. I don't want to. It's out of sight, out of mind. I think.
Like the carnivore diet, people really think only eating meat. Excuse me. Yeah, it's like people who think the carnivore diet is like is gonna save you or something. Like, no, eating a balanced diet, not overeating, working out, doing cardio, strength training. That's really the goal. A lot of Americans don't exercise. So if you eat a lot, you don't exercise, you gain weight. That's all it is. Carnivore is not going to save you. It's not. I've tried carnivore for a month. It was terrible. Constipated, headaches, dehydrated. It was terrible. My eyes were all red, like, just terrible. Terrible. Eliminating things when God has made for you to eat. I don't know, man. God loves us so much that He made an apple. He made an apple for us to eat, guys. Let me lift this chair up a little bit. God loves us so much that He created an apple, strawberries, blueberries, mangoes, oranges, tangerines, mandarins, dragon fruit, pineapples. He loves us so much that He made that for us to eat, just to give us a little bit of joy. But we say, oh, those things are so bad. It causes cancer. Come on, man. Beef is amazing. Chicken is amazing. Fish is amazing. Okay? We have that too. You have some fish, some vegetables, and some fruits. And you have exercise and strength training. Boom, you're covered. You're covered. And your body might get cancer on carnivore or eating a balanced diet. It don't matter. What you could control is your weight and what you put in your mouth. So if you don't like whole foods, you want to eat overly processed. Everything in this world is processed, okay? I hope people know this. Overly processed. Junk food. High foods with high sugar. Added sugar. Nowadays, if I see something with like this drink is like 10 grams of sugar and 1 gram of added sugar. That's 4 grams. It's with 4 servings in that. It's about 40 grams of sugar, but it's natural sugar. If it was like 20 grams of added sugar, I wouldn't drink it. It's disgusting. For me now, it's disgusting. Fasting has helped me to realize how you need. Let me start talking. Let's get back to the videos. People like, oh, he's rambling off.
I have a very good disposition for trauma. But I have great support, Phil. The one thing is, because you mentioned lots of groups, and you're right about that, but I also have great support within the media. You know, there's a group of people in the media. You might be one of them. You're a very important force. The fact is, I've watched you so long. I just felt so confident when you called. I said, you know, otherwise, what do I have to subject myself to it for? It doesn't make sense. But I find it to be a very different and very interesting it's a psychological interview that you're doing too. You're sort of being my psychiatrist, and maybe I could use a psychiatrist every once in a while. No, it's pretty cool. But I try not to go into that. And very importantly, I have tremendous support. I have support from the people. You look at the polls, and they agree with me. There's sort of a silent majority. You know, it's a term that's been used over the years, but it's a true term. I have the support of many more people than they have, if we call they the bad guys. And I think if I didn't, or if I felt I didn't, I would not be quite the same person.
Vocal, right?
You know, we all have a personal truth. You know, is that what we believe about ourselves when we don't have our mask on, when we don't, you know, I put on a nice suit. You know, I'm going to see the president here.
Nice suit.
I want to be credible.
Looks good.
And we, you know, we put our best foot forward when we step out into the world. But we do have a personal truth, that what we believe about ourselves, that are most vulnerable, when nobody's looking, nobody's listening. Maybe it's 3 o'clock in the morning, we wake up looking at the ceiling, thinking, what the hell am I doing? What do you say to yourselves when the crowds aren't cheering? When you're home alone, you're riding in the car, you're by yourself. What is the hardest, darkest moment that you can think of in this journey you've been on the last several years? You
have to be very strong. You're fighting off very evil forces, and they're very smart forces. There are people that control Biden, totally true. I think I know who they are largely. But there are people that control, they're very smart, very energetic. Possibly they're real believers, you know, what their sick ideology is. But you have to be smart, and you have to have confidence. I mean, you have to have a certain confidence. The other thing is, I realize over the years, you know, I've been through a lot, great and bad. You know, I won the presidency. Everybody said, how are you going to do? How good is that? It was the most incredible evening, one of the most incredible evenings in the history of the country. Look at the celebration. I mean, it was incredible. But you also go through bad. I also find,
incredible.
I understand fully that the bad also disappears. In other words, you'll go through bad moments, and it disappears. It's sort of funny, because I've watched your show a lot over the years. See, I'm not ashamed to say it, because some people say, oh, you watch Dr. Phil. Well, you know, your show is a very smart show. And I've watched you ask a question similar to that to some couple or some, and they break down, oh, they start crying on the show. I said, that's never happening to me. If that happens to me, that's the end of my political career. I think people, actually, maybe people would like me better. But I'll tell you, you need strength. You have to have strength. And people don't want to see that. I've watched so many people, you break down people, they don't even know they're being broken down. But it's different.
Well, that's the last thing I want to do with you, but I do want people to know you. I want people to know every aspect of you, and I know it about myself. I know that not every time is a great day, not every time is a hard day.
Until you led a charmed life. You never had a problem in your life, right?
Yeah, I watched you during that trial. That's not a fun time.
You know, it was an icebox. That courtroom was so cold.
Really?
And I believe it was set that way.
Bro, like, that's true, bro. I did jury duty, and the courtroom was so cold, bro. I passed out. Like, I was like this, because they had to pick, like, jurors or something like that. So I was just sitting there, like, if they picked me, I would have stayed, but they didn't pick me. So I was just there like this. It was like this. And I would like this. And I would be looking at the whole courtroom like, yo, did anybody see me doze off? It's so chilly in there. It's so, like at church, I'm going to be honest. Sometimes I kind of like fall asleep a little bit. But not all the time, though. It's like maybe, because it's just cold. It's cold. It's like, oh, man. Like, it's like all I need is like a blanket. And I'm going to fall asleep. Obviously, I don't sleep during worship because it's hyped. We all are like singing, dancing, all that. But sometimes it's like, nah, I was just passing out, man. I couldn't control myself, bro. I could not control myself. I don't know why. It was so boring, tedious. I was just like this. I was like that.
That courtroom was freezing. You know, I'd call it the icebox, right? I say, I just sat through 4 hours, and I'm not campaigning by doing that. That's what angered me. They're taking away my voice. They're keeping me in this icebox, and they're taking away my voice. But, you know, one thing that's, you bring it up, and you haven't asked me the question yet, and I'm sure you will, although I know we've been doing this for quite a while, and it's an honor to do it. But the hardest part for me is probably my family, because it's very unfair to my family. I have a very good wife. She reads this crap. I have great kids. You know what amazed me? I gave up my salary. I didn't take salary. And it's $450,000, approximately $450,000 a year. So, you know, it's still money. It's a couple of $1 million. I never had a good story saying I did. I'm not looking for a story. What surprised me is there was a couple of stories. Who else did it? Nobody. Everybody took. I figured maybe Kennedy, it's a pretty rich family. I figured the only one that may have done it was George Washington. You know, George Washington was a very wealthy landowner. Mm-hmm. And they said the only one that may have done it is George Washington. I figured Roosevelt, maybe FDR. You know, there were some pretty rich presidents. Every president took their salary. Bushes took their salary. I didn't take my salary. I gave it up. And every month, I'd get a call from fake news. Because, you know, you can't really give it up. You have to give it to an organization within government. You're not allowed to actually give it. So what happens, you get the check, and then you give it to Health and Human Services, or you give it to the Navy, or you give it to the Army, or something. And every month they say, did you give it? Did you give it? And when you show them that you gave it, there was no story. And it was just interesting to see. The whole system is rigged. I mean, it's just a nasty system. But the saddest is, I'll give you one quick example. I have a son, Don. He's a good kid. And he wants to help people. And they said he was involved with Russia. He knows less about Russia than that young person sitting right over there, who I'm sure knows nothing about Russia. And it was Adam Shifty Schiff, a bad guy. And he comes out of a so-called intelligence meeting, and he goes to a microphone.
An intelligence meeting.
Press gathered, because this was during the Russia hoax. Total hoax. It had nothing to do. 5 million phone calls. I had not one phone call to Russia. It was a hoax. And it came out that way, and it's nice, but it took 2.5 years. And by the way, it was very dangerous, because at least Putin understood it was a hoax. You know, he used to say, he thought we were crazy, to be honest with you. He thought we were crazy. But Don, so they'd say, Adam Schiff comes out and says, Donald Trump Jr. will go to jail because of what he's done with Russia. And it was Adam Schiff and Hillary Clinton and some others in the DNC that they made up a story. Think of how bad you have to be. You make up a phony story about Russia, the Russia hoax. You have the dossier, you have the whole thing, it's all fake. They paid $12 million or something for the dossier, $12 million. They gave this guy Steele a fortune to do a fake story. It's called the fake dossier, right? Mm-hmm. They go to my son, they know it's fake. It's not like they think it's real. They know it's a fake because they made it up. And they say, Donald Trump Jr. will go to jail. So I call up my son, I said, are you okay? Is there something I don't know? How bad do you have to be when you can say about a story that you made up that you know is fake, that my son is going to go to jail because of the story?
How do you deal with that as a father? Because I've had it happen to me. You've met Jordan.
Yes.
And my other son, Jay. I've had stories about them, and it infuriates me.
I called him up. I knew it wasn't true, but I said, this guy, these are not stupid people. I call him Watermelon Head. He's got the thinnest neck I've ever seen, how it holds up that head. He's got a neck that's about a size 6. Very unattractive guy, both inside and outside. And people say, oh, that's such a terrible thing to say. That's okay. Very unattractive guy. Here's the thing. These are bad people. And it's not easy to deal with. You know, when you have your kids involved or your family, your wife, and you read stuff, most of it is untrue. It's just totally untrue. But think of that. They make up a story, and then they say your son's going to jail for something that they know is false. These are bad people.
Is that harder to take than when they're talking about you?
Yeah, for me it is. For me, I've become, I don't know, I've become different. Maybe it would have been tougher. I think the fact that I have such unbelievable support helps me a lot. It doesn't bother me.
Has it bothered you? Has there been blowback on Barron because he's younger and more vulnerable?
It's not easy. And he's a great kid. He's a good student. He's got accepted to different colleges. He's got some of those colleges, all of a sudden they're rioting all over the place. You know, you're saying, but he's a good boy. He's a tall boy. He's very tall. He's very tall. And he's a great kid. He's a good-looking kid. And, he's going to be going to college. But he doesn't say it. And I think he doesn't say it because he doesn't want to hurt me, and he thinks it's possibly a hurtful conversation. But it has to affect my family. And I think that's really unfair because I have a very good family. I have good kids. I have a wonderful wife. I mean, it's not easy for her to read this kind of stuff. That's fake. That's fake stuff. But that's the way it is. It certainly is not a good thing. And it affects me more than it would if it were just about me. I wish it could be just about me.
How's she holding up through all of this?
I think good, but I don't think it's an easy thing for her. And I think if it wasn't good, she wouldn't want to tell me about it, to be honest with you, because, she sees that I'm fighting like hell. I'm trying to become president and make America great again. That's what we're going to do. We're going to make America great again. They put tremendous obstacles in our way, including the 20 million people that are going to be in here by the time this guy gets out. It's an election we have to win. We're not going to have a country left if we don't win this election.
Have you ever thought that the toll that it takes on your family is too much? There are headlines out there that say, when you win your second term, you are going to make the people that have come after you pay. Every situation needs a hero. What a great opportunity to step up and say, you know what, it stops here, it stops with me.
I think you'll be impressed. We have to unite the country. We have to save the country.
You're watching Merit Street. Stay tuned for a live
Maybe not in the way you expressed that. It's a very interesting way of expression, actually, of that question. I haven't really. I think to a certain extent, I think that my family wants me to do it. Our country's in trouble. We could be in a world war very soon. We're going to end the problem. Think of it. We're going to end Ukraine fast. I'm going to end it fast. I know both. I know Zelensky. I know Putin very well. I'm going to get it ended. That is a horror show that's going on over there. But think of it. Why are we hundreds of billions of dollars more money? Why is this happening? Why is Europe spending a fraction of the money that we're spending? There's so many different things about that are just wrong. But my family's good. My family loves this country, and I think they feel that I do a good job. Look, we had the most successful country we've ever had during my time. We had the greatest economy in history of any country.
Do they want you to run, or do they tolerate you running?
Interesting question. Well, they tolerate it, but
they at least tolerate it.
Yeah, they tolerate it. I think they love the country. I think they think that I do a good job. I think they feel that a lot of people say that this is nobody. I get it so often, and I'm not sure it's right. They say there's nobody else that can straighten out this country. And again, Viktor Orban said just recently, he's a strong man from a very interesting country, and he knows Russia very well. He knows Zelensky very well. He knows Ukraine, but he said the only one, Hungary. He said the only one that's going to straighten this out is Trump, because he didn't use the word respect. He used the word they were afraid of him. I don't want to say that about these people, these other leaders. I don't want to say they were afraid. I'm not going to use that term, but let's use the word respect. They respected me. They respected me, and they respected our country. And they knew if they played games, I was going to hit the hell out of them with tariffs and lots of other things. We have a lot of weapons, not just military weapons. I rebuilt our entire military, by the way. Our entire military is rebuilt. And this person that we have leading us, if you can call the word leading with quotes, he gave away $85 billion worth of brand new military equipment in Afghanistan. In my opinion, the lowest day in the history of our country. I think probably the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country was what happened, the way we pulled out of Afghanistan. We left people behind. We had 13 soldiers who I met the parents. They're devastated, killed. Nobody ever talks about, you would talk about them. I put them right up the top. 38 soldiers who are no arms, no legs, faces just wiped out. They're trying to live, trying to live. Nobody ever talks about them. They talk about 13 dead, absolutely. But they don't talk about 38 soldiers that have been wiped out. And then hundreds of people were also killed. Hundreds of people where this madman set off a bomb. Should have never left them. They should have been in Bagram. We should have kept Bagram. Bagram is 1 hour away from where China makes its nuclear weapons. We gave it up. You know who's occupying Bagram right now? China. Yeah. China. We gave the biggest Air Force base, one of the biggest runways, one of the most powerful runways, 8 foot thick of concrete, built when the dollar was very big, okay, years ago. We gave it to the Chinese. It should have never happened. What we've done, I think that was the most embarrassing day. And I have to tell you, if that didn't happen, I don't know that Putin would have gone in. I think Putin watched that catastrophe and he said, hey, this is a great time to attack Ukraine.
You think it emboldened him?
I think so, yeah, I think so.
Let me ask you this. Right now, headlines everywhere, of course, you don't respect, but there are headlines out there that say, when you win your second term, that you are going to make the people that have come after you pay. Retribution and revenge.
Yeah.
And let me ask you this before you even respond to that. I want to play what if with you for a minute. What if when you win this election, you said, enough is enough. Too much is too much. This is a race to the bottom, and it stops here. It stops now. They've made a half a dozen or more major attempts to take you off the playing board, and you just said, it stops now. I am going to rise above this cycle of ugly. I'm not going to play this gotcha retribution game. It stops now. I'll forgive. I'll not ever forget, but I am not going to play this retribution game. I am going to put the American people first, not getting my pound of flesh first. You got to do what you got to do, but I'm going to put this country as the shining city on the hill. I am moving forward. I'm not playing the retribution game. It stops with me. It stops here. What if you took that approach?
I'm okay with that. I am. I'm okay with that. Sometimes, I'm sure in certain moments, I wouldn't be. You know, when you go through what I've been through, they spied on my campaign. You know, they spied on my campaign. Remember I announced it? They did things that people don't even talk about. And I got rid of Comey, and I got rid of a lot of people. I got rid of a lot of people. Thousands of people. At the VA, I cleaned it, 9,000 people. They were sadists. I got rid of them. But what they've done is bad. With all of that being said, we have to unite the country, Phil. The country has to be united. This country is a mess.
Every situation needs a hero. What a great opportunity for you to stop this cycle, this vicious cycle of gotcha, gotcha back, gotcha, gotcha back. Every situation needs a hero. What a great opportunity to step up and say, you know what, it stops here, it stops with me.
I think you'll be impressed. We have to unite the country. We have to save the country. That's not really saving the country. There are people that did some bad things. I know who they are and all of that. But as an example, with Hillary Clinton, I'd mention her name. Everyone's screaming. Thousands and thousands. Yeah, we just had 107,000 people show up in New Jersey. You saw that. 25,000 people showed up in the South Bronx.
In the South Bronx.
But we had Wildwood, New Jersey. 107,000 people. It was a record. They've never had that. When I mentioned the name Hillary previous to the last election, they said, lock her up, lock her up, lock her up. But I would be there, and I'm trying to almost quiet them down. They were going crazy. How would it be I win, and I lock Hillary Clinton up? The president's wife, the former president's wife, I locked her up. And how would it be if I took the Secretary of State, your Secretary of State, and we threw her into a prison someplace? I think it was terrible. And yet now they're trying to do that with me. Think of it. I didn't want to do that. I could have done that pretty easily. She busted up her phones and she busted up her laptops, and what they did, and they put bleach bit. You know what bleach bit is? It's so expensive nobody uses it because it's an acid and it wipes everything out. Could have done it really easy. Don't forget, she disobeyed a subpoena from the United States Congress, and she broke up all this machinery, all this technology after she got the subpoena. Think of it. How would it look if I took a president of the United States wife and threw her into a prison? I hated it because I wanted to bring the country together, and I largely did. And I brought it together through success because it was the most successful economy in the history of our country. Okay. Now the difference is they're trying to do it to me. And maybe you could feel differently about it, but I don't feel differently. Retribution is going to be through success. We're going to make it very successful. We have to bring the country together.
And you can do that. Because let me tell you, this revenge thing there's a lot of research, and Dr. James Kimmel at Yale has done this research and seen neurologically in the brain that there's an addiction to revenge, just like to opioid or whatever. And that even if people commit a crime and they get arrested for it, they see themselves as the victim and they want revenge against the person that arrested them. And then the person that arrested them gets hammered. So now that person says, okay, well, I'm not going to put up with that. So they go back after the criminal. Now the criminal has been victimized again. And so we get into this loop where we're addicted to it back and forth. It's got to stop. And we're better than this. We must be better than this. And you're big enough to do it. Every situation needs a hero. You can stop this. You can say, well, no, I think it ends here. It ends with me.
I think you'll be proud of the job we do. And, the word revenge is a very strong word, but maybe we have revenge through success. But that's what I'd like to see. I want to see the country survive, because this country is not going to survive like this. And And really, you know, the expression, I think it's the greatest theme ever in politics, man, because it's the biggest movement. We want to make America great again, and that's what we have to do. And I think you'll be very proud of the job we did.
You know, the Pope has a book out that he's written, and he says, "We are all brothers and sisters, and there must be no resentment among us. For any war to truly end, forgiveness is necessary. Otherwise, what will follow is not justice, but revenge." And that's true even in the cultural wars that we're fighting here. I think you have so much to do, you don't have time to get even. You only have time to get right.
Well, revenge does take time, I will say that.
It does.
And sometimes revenge can be justified, Phil. I have to be honest. You know, sometimes it can.
But is the country better or worse for them going after you?
I think the country is really worse for what they've done. And I think you see that when you look at the poll numbers. When you see that almost $400 million has poured in since this horrible decision was made. That was a few days ago. Numbers that nobody's ever heard of in politics before. It's a great honor. The people of our country get it. You know, they're very smart. Taken as a whole, I have to say, they're very smart. But it's been an honor being with you. It really has. And I think you'll be very proud of the job we do.
You have rallied people. I had people in my focus group the other night that said, I have not voted for Trump before. I have not been a Trump fan before. But I have donated to Trump because he has inspired me. I have donated to him, and I am voting for him now, and I have not before, but he has inspired me.
Actually, it's been a beautiful thing to watch. Thank you.
Mr. President, it's been an honor
Thank you
speaking
very
with
much.
you.
It's a
Thank you
great
so
honor.
much.
Thank you.
All right, that's the end of the interview, man. I learned a lot about Trump on this interview. If you guys like the interview or you like the video, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.